Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Masashi Niwano. I am the festival director of CAAMFest. On behalf of the CAAM staff, that is the Center for Asian American Media, I am so thrilled to be here for this special conversation. Every year at our festival, we take a moment to celebrate people who are working within an industry who are doing really amazing work. And this year, we've had a very special selection of filmmakers. You get to meet one of them very soon. Before I introduce him, I have a few things to say. First off, I want to thank DoorDash for being the sponsor of this screening. Thank you so much. Programs like CAAMFest 2021 and CAAM's year-round programs are made possible with the community of supporters around the world. Help us bring compelling and diverse Asian American stories to light. Donate or join as a CAAM member on CAAM's website, caammedia.org. For a limited time, new members can save 15% on our friend and supporter memberships using promo code CELEBRATESTORIES. As I mentioned, every year we do these spotlight honoree conversations and programs. This year we have three very diverse but three celebrated filmmakers at a point in their career where they're doing amazing work and challenging themselves with doing new things as well. So a perfect kind of time in the life of each of these talents. The other two, Margaret Cho, who, as you all know, is a fantastic comedian, director, recently a producer of Koreatown Ghost Stories. So we checked in with her earlier this week. And then also Dante Bosco, who is a talented actor. His directorial debut, Fabulous Filipino Brothers, sold out at CAAMFest at Fort Mason. So we're excited about that event. Today, we have Evan Jackson Leong, who is a filmmaker I have been such a fan of for over a decade now, but also someone who is so professional and so easy to work with that it kind of transcends myself having that appreciation for him as a filmmaker. He's also just a great human being, someone who I love to collaborate and check in with. Just so you all know, Snakehead is a film that's going to play right after this program and is our centerpiece presentation, and is a film that I am invited many times throughout the years because it's a film from the first cut to this glorious cut, final cut that you all will see is such a fantastic film and really shows the kind of diversity and the powerfulness of Evan's storytelling. So I'd like to bring to the stage or on screen now our spotlight honoree, Evan Jackson Leong. Welcome.
Hey, Masashi.
Hey. Thank you so much. As you know, as we were imagining this, I think our hopes were to do this in person. And I do hope, and people should stay tuned for all of our social media. I think there will be opportunities in the future, not only to play, hopefully, Snakehead, your past films, but just having you in the Bay Area. It would just feel right to have you back. The last time I think I saw you in person might have been at the Castro Theater for our screening of LINSANITY. Maybe I've seen you after that. Actually, no, I have seen you after that. But that is a moment I do remember with you in front of a completely sold out Castro film with you and that wonderful film. We are going to talk about LINSANITY, but first I wanted to start at the beginnings. You know, you are from the Bay Area, and I'm curious if you can maybe share with the audiences, you know, where you grew up, how growing up in the Bay Area impacted you as a filmmaker, you know, how it pushed you to maybe tell stories.
Yeah. Well, you know, I thank you so much for having me. It's just really an honor to be in the Centerpiece, and it's always nice to check in with CAAM, my home film festival that, you know, I think I've been going to for the last 30 years of my life. And so really excited to be here. You know, growing up in the Bay Area, it's different than, especially going to San Francisco, it was a different experience than I think what we're, the majority of Asian Americans grow up in America. And, you know, for me, you know, I'm sixth generation Chinese American. So my family's been here, you know, for all the immigrant kids and second generation. I mean, basically your kids are going to end up like me. So, you know, this is where this is what happens when you're in America for this long staying Chinese. You know, but growing up in San Francisco, you know, I didn't really feel that I was ever a minority. You know, I grew up in majority. I mean, every school I went to, the majority was Asian and majority Chinese. So I don't think I have some of that sort of the same sort of insecurities that most of our community has and the stories that we tell. I don't think I really knew it till I went to college, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I'm not the majority here. And growing up in San Francisco, it's a very confident sort of place, and I think telling stories is, for me, I really look at it as a privilege. So I think I'm very privileged to be able to even think in the space of telling stories. I think a lot of it stems from my mother, who took me to a lot of random Asian American events growing up, right? I mean, we saw 18 Mighty Mountain Warriors, we saw random Asian American arts, and she always wanted to expose me to those things, and encouraged me to follow and to pursue those things. But it wasn't really till college that I really decided, like, oh, filmmaking is what I want to do.
And what about filmmaking? Once you were in college, learning about all the opportunities, because when I think of you as someone in the world, I feel like you would be successful in so many different fields. But what about filmmaking resonated with you?
I mean, for me, I've always been artistic. I love drawing. I love music. I love art. I wasn't specialized in any of those things. But when I just realized with film, you get to combine all these mediums and put them into one thing that you get to control. And it's not live, because I'm not very much of a live person, but it's something that you can plan and build and take years to make and eventually show people based off the same sort of storytelling that we're all used to. And for me, that was really for me, it's the ultimate medium of storytelling.
And I'm curious if you might have a different answer from when we were hanging out during LINSANITY to now, but as a goal, as a storyteller, right? You are, for this program, I looked back at all the different programs, films that you have worked on, been associated with. There's quite a diversity of style, kind of messages in the films. As a storyteller, maybe now, what are your goals? Like, what do you want to put out into the world? And is that different maybe from years ago? Just curious.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously different, right? I mean, when you're in your 20s, you want to say something, in your 30s, you want to say something, and now that I'm in my 40s, I want to say something, right? And you're obviously telling something different. The thread kind of stays the same, because my theory of who we are as artists and people is basically who we are from 0 to 18 is basically makes us. And, we're always trying to either fight that or embrace that, or realize, like, oh, this is who I am. And I think in my storytelling, I don't think the visuals have only gotten bigger for me, and the storytelling, the same sort of thread, the things that I'm interested, the things that I care about, has not really changed. And I think as a filmmaker, I realize, like, there's times where I'm provided an opportunity to do a project about something, for work and for money, but I just don't have the same sort of passion I have for it. It probably doesn't come out as good as I'd like it to. And, that's what I think, LINSANITY, Snakehead, Genesis, all these different things were all projects that I really cared about. And, I think, from my DNA of who I am as an Asian, sixth generation Chinese American, I mean, these are always the stories I want to tell. I'm always interested in the Asian person that did that one weird thing that we all read about in the news. I'm always interested in what our community does here in America, or anywhere in the world, really. I'm constantly looking for those stories that are different and, exceptional, because I know we're exceptional. There's just not many of us, so I don't really always get to see that often,
Yeah, and I do think there, especially in the audience now, if there are any aspiring filmmakers, I think a lot of us have stories that we want to tell. At CAAM, more recently, mentorship has become something that we're so interested in, and making sure we have mentor opportunities for fellows, whether you're an aspiring person of color, Asian American, if you're living in the South. So we're thinking through, who is our current generation of kind of mentors who can help the next group. I'm curious for yourself, whether it's growing up in San Francisco or at the beginning of your career, did you have any key mentors who really helped you bring your stories or your artistry to the next level?
Yeah. I mean, I got to go back to the one and only Justin Lin was my mentor first getting into this game. Without him, I doubt I would be here. I think I got to experience what it was like when you were a broke graduate student, and then when you become, this multi, this huge blockbuster film director that does, these things. So, for me, like that was really truly, my mentor, my inspiration when I first started filmmaking. He gave me. The opportunity, the invitation to even venture in this sort of medium, right? Because, we're talking about 2001. There's not a lot of opportunity for anyone in the film industry. There's no digital. We're still in film. It's a very Hollywood's still old fraternity. And really, there's no way in, really, at that point. And I was lucky to, meet him. And, as a mentor, it was exactly what I needed.
And around that time would be Better Luck Tomorrow. So was that the first project that you both worked on together?
Yeah, the Better Luck Tomorrow was the first thing, and I was still in college, and he was still in graduate school, and he knew I had a camera. I was taking classes with ethno communications at UCLA under Bob Nakamura, and he introduced me to Justin because they needed someone to replace his technical expertise at Janum, and then I basically met Justin, and we really vibed on that one day. And then he's like, "Hey, you got a camera? Why don't you shoot the behind the scenes of my movie?" And I was like, "You're a kid, you don't know what that's in store. It just sounds like a fun thing to do." So, I would show up and come to this film set and experience what it was like. And that was my film school, really, of seeing what it's like to make an independent film. You learn so much on independent film. And in a film set like that, with a leader like that, with a director like that, you really get the full spectrum of like what a film process should be like.
Yeah, and Better Luck Tomorrow, along with some other films, are known as like some of the defining Asian American films that are milestones, at least, right? Of key films that we cement as like a moment, not only for creating a platform for so many talent that worked on the film, but also the cultural impact it had. And as someone who was filming behind the scenes, did you know, like how much did you know as you were filming it that this is going to be a really special project? Or were you, along with so many others, surprised by how it was connecting with audiences?
I was completely naive. I was just 22. I had no idea what it was. I thought all film sets were like that. There was like, 16 people. I was like, wow, there's so many people here, but it wasn't that many people in hindsight. And, I had no idea. I really, to me, I remember when he told me about this movie and the script, and I was like, well, are these white guys or Asian guys? He was like, Asian. And I was like, whoa, that blows my mind to do a movie like that. Cause I've been waiting for that for the last, 20 years of my life to see something like that. And so I had no idea of the impact or what was important or how important it was or what it would be. I think I got real lucky. And, I think that's a lot has to do with this film industry. It's like being lucky at the right times, and I don't take that for granted at all. It's, you just got to hang around till that one thing hits, and I think that's what a lot of my career has kind of been.
Recently I saw Better Luck Tomorrow. It was like an opening night rescreening at the LA Asian Pacific Film Festival. Shout out to Visual Communications, love our partners in LA. And I remember, this is only a few years ago, how it still is so good and still so relevant. And so I do recommend to audiences, if you've seen it, but it's been a minute, go back to it. It still stands up. And actually, when we did our conversation with Margaret Cho earlier in the week, she mentioned Better Luck Tomorrow as a film that really stuck with her for how tense it is and the emotion in that film, how it captures that kind of suspense of sorts. So anyways, it's still living in so many of our brains.
Even if we beat, this is a little quick thing, man. Even the intro where you're talking about Margaret Cho and Dante, those two were like role models to me when I first started. Margaret Cho with America and what she was doing, and Dante with the debut. It was, and what he was also doing in on the big screen was just so exciting. So it's great to see that they're still here, just like me.
Yeah, and you're all doing really great stuff. So it's really exciting. And on demand, you can see LINSANITY, of course. You can also see the debut. So check it out. Two other films. Before we start talking about LINSANITY, because I have questions there. Two other films that I have you connected with, Justin, is Fast and Furious, Tokyo Drift, which is a film that I really connected with me so well. I loved it so much, and our audiences always are like, that's like the perfect film to rescreen at the drive-in or outside, because it's so much fun and such great representation of that. And then Finishing the Game is a film that we played at a festival. I really love that film. It is a film that I don't know if it gets lost, but I know as far as like a really great Asian American narrative, that's one I always think about. I was curious for either of those films if you have any thoughts, experiences that you want to share about them.
I mean, Fast and Furious, it was Justin gave me the chance to be like, hey, look, I'm gonna give you this opportunity to be my driver, so you get to see everything on set, right? And really experience without doing some job that's like a PA job. You don't really get to see what a director does when you have a role like that. So, I was like Turtle from Entourage. So I wake up every morning, hours before I pick him up and drive him to set. And I don't really have to do anything until it's time to go home and drive him back home. And for us as, guys that bootstrap as indie filmmakers, like having someone drive you is like a whole crazy thing. But to do that as friends, as a mentor and a mentee, it was really, really exciting. To me, that movie, I'll still say it too, it's still the most expensive Asian American film ever made, right? Because most of it is shot here in LA, so most of those scenes of Asian Americans in them, and it's just there's no way no one studio's gonna let us spend that much money on Asian American, especially back then. It was kind of fun. I had a little cameo in there, so I had a little dancing cameo in there. But
Nice.
For me, really, that movie was just it was crazy to see how to spend that much money a day. And okay, that's what I learned from that. Being on set with Justin was like, okay, the only job I really want is his job, so I gotta go on my own path and figure out what I gotta do to get there. I thought it would take a little sooner, but it took a little while. I'm here now. So,
Nice.
I'm excited. Finishing the Game, man, that movie I think is definitely overlooked. I love that movie. It's so much fun. And it was one of those times where I was up to par with a lot of things. So I had 7 different roles on that, from post-souping to transpo to co-producer to all these things. And, all those roles really just, I'm like, okay, well, we're doing any film. This is the way it works. And, I really liked what we made with that film. Even to this day, I think it resonates. The themes are so important. And I don't know if there's been a film that explores those ideas of Asian American masculinity. And with all this Bruce Lee stuff happening, it's like, we did the idea that it radiates beyond just that documentary, than his moment and what it means to us, not just to everyone, but to us as an Asian American male. Bruce represents so much, and is a lot of greatness, a lot of pain, a lot of insecurity, a lot of different things. And I think we kind of hit a lot of those points in that film. I think part of it is the film might be a little smart. I think it's very, very highbrow, and I think you might have to experience those identity issues to understand. But I really love that movie.
I'm going to stop here. We have a quick video that I wanted to share with you, and then we can talk about it right when we get back.
All right.
Hey, Ev. I just want to congratulate you on your new film. I wish I could be there with you in person, but I'm just so proud, that you've completed it, and it's another chapter in your amazing journey. I think back now, I can't believe that we had met over 20 years ago, and it was that moment when I quit my job at the Japanese American National Museum, and I was gonna go pack up and everything, and I run into this young kid, and we ended up talking and clicking, and that's where it all started. And it led us down to Better Luck Tomorrow, all the way through Tokyo Drift and beyond, and I look back now and I'm so grateful you know, because the one thing that you brought to the journey was this unwavering support, you know, and you know, it's never easy. But people use the word community, I think, sometimes a little too loosely, you know, and what I've really learned from you is that it's not only just a shared experience, but it's a commitment to something bigger, you know. So I'm always grateful, forever grateful for that lesson that you've taught me, and I'm so proud of you. And everybody just have fun tonight, and I'll see you down the road.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
What you mentioned your experiences with Justin, and it seems like it continues on. And I know you've mentioned like just driving him around. I would imagine just the time to absorb and to connect and just to watch was really helpful for you. Was there anything in particular from Justin that you learned the most, or something that a takeaway just by being able to work on the films with him, or just seeing Justin in action?
Yeah. No, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, there's a ton I learned from him. I always wonder like how I come up with an idea or why I have this sort of attack with approach with the process, and it always stems from something we did. I mean, I think we didn't, you know, it was formative years for me, but we spent a lot of time together. So I got a lot of philosophy and approach. You know, I wanted it. I ate it all up, everything he gave me. You know, I think, you know, there's a couple things I think that really resonate, really that I got from him is you know, one thing is the idea of passion, and how far that takes you. Even seeing him on here, you could tell it's just there's passion, there's care in what he says and what he does, and you have to care like that about your films. You have to care about the art with unwavering, sort of relentless passion, because if you don't, the moment you don't give 110%, it's going to slip, because it's this medium is not forgiving at all, you know, and you don't just get to just do it. It's hard. It's very hard. It's never easy. So, you know, from him, you know, the idea of passion, that how far it takes you, right? And also the work ethics. I mean, still to this day, he's still probably the hardest working guy on these sets, you know, that he's directing, right? And he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to at all, but he still is probably the hardest worker. And, you know, it's, you know, I love that. I love that pain in the work, in the process. And I think I surround myself with like-minded people who like to push themselves to get that art. And I think when you do that, you get something really special. You know, I think he, as, you know, understanding what the community represents, and, you know, how we can tell our stories and move the dial. You know, from Justin, it was really a lot about like, look, we have to hone the craft. We don't make if the craft is not good, ain't no one gonna watch our stuff, you know. Yeah. And so focusing on the craft has always been, you know, he's a film school guy and I was not a film school guy, so it was always back to the basics of telling a story and how to tell a story. So.
Thank you so much, and thanks for sharing that. And when I do think of storytelling, I said this at the very beginning, like whether it's documentaries or narratives, like your films are so wonderfully done, and you can see the effort of everything that you do in the films to make sure, you know, it's at the quality that you want it to be at. And one thing Justin mentioned that resonated with me with my time knowing you is when he mentions community, right? And kind of being able to trust in that community. When we announced LINSANITY was our opening night film, I've said this already, it sold out the Castro. That is hard to do. That is 1,400 seats. And those were all ticketed people. We had to refund tickets to the Castro, which is very impossible to do. And I remember, of course, LINSANITY was a big thing happening in the world, but I remember on the back end, a lot of organizations, people in San Francisco, in the Bay Area, wanting to come because of you and wanting to be there to support you. And I remember very vividly people buying tons of like group tickets for their organizations and groups. And so I was really impressed by your connection with community here in San Francisco and just in the world. So I do think this brings me into LINSANITY. That film came out around 2013. So it's been 7-8 years ago. Maybe starting a little bit with LINSANITY with Jeremy Lin. Can you talk about the origins of when you thought you wanted to tell this story, his story?
Yeah. I mean, I remember really clearly this waffle place up on Sunset when Chris Chen at the time was the producer, and he always did breakfast meetings. He liked to do breakfast meetings, so I'd have to go drive to Hollywood at 8 in the morning and have breakfast with him. As a filmmaker, you're not used to getting up that early at the time. But he was like, hey, well, I got this kid at Harvard. He's an Asian kid. He's playing. He's from the Bay. I'm like, is he like 7'9" and like wing? And he's like, no, man, he's a guard. He's point guard. He's aggressive. He shoots threes. He dunks. And I was like, all right, this sounds like a fun story, And this is like when he was like his first year, I think, at Harvard. So it took a little bit of time for us to like kind of cultivate and develop a relationship. But at the time, Chris was like, hey, look, at the bare minimum, we have a great story about a Chinese Asian American kid from the Bay Area that loves hoops that made it to D1 basketball. And that's never happened I've never been able to be that close to it. And at the very least, we tell this story and we put it on YouTube. Maybe there'll be another one. Maybe there'll be another one, because what he accomplished at that level was already nuts. And starting point guard, it just didn't really happen. And so, for me, that's how this all started. And then little did we know it was going to turn into a whole other thing.
And do you remember reaching out, or your team reaching out to Jeremy Lin, and what his interest was to be filmed?
Yeah, he's very simple at the time, right? All he wanted was like, church, family, and basketball, right? Doing a documentary is like, I don't need that. I don't want that. He didn't want fame at the time, and nobody wanted to be famous. Like, it wasn't, that important to him. And if anything, if it took away from his studies or from his, journey to basketball, then he could pass. So it took some time. Fortunately, we had Chris, and Chris can be very convincing. And we just hung around, and they helped him navigate what he had to do to get in the league because of Chris's ties to the league. And it's kind of we're just there. We hung around and we're like, hey, look, we're normal. We're just like you. We're from the Bay. We're just we just want to tell your story. And over time, he eventually opened up and started sharing with us, and I built trust, and now I have a lifelong relationship with him.
That's great. Speaking of Jeremy Lin, we have another video.
Oh, wow.
What's up, Ev? I just want to say, man, so many years removed, but people are still watching the documentary. And when I think back, I just smile because we literally started off, and it was supposed to just be a YouTube series. And at that time, I wasn't even getting out the bench with Golden State. We had no idea LINSANITY was going to happen, and we were just kind of in the lockout season filming some random stuff. And I just remember us, like, it felt like we're just boys, and you just had a camera and I was just hooping, and that's all we did. And the next thing LINSANITY happened. And man, the thing I'm most proud of is everybody tried to take that footage, and everybody tried to take that film, and ESPN tried to make it 30 for 30, and other people were throwing huge dollar signs at us to try to do certain things and take the project away. But we stuck to it, and man, I appreciate you for everything you've done for me, for my career, for telling that story, and the fact that we get to continue to show that film and show that story through our lens and the way that it was supposed to be done. I'll always be grateful for you, man. You're a trailblazer. Keep doing what you're doing.
Wow, Massage, this is amazing. Thank you for all this. This is so exciting. Making me feel, I'm like, no, I did not anticipate any of these guys. So thank you so much.
For us, for CAAMFest, we, sometimes things sync up, right? And seeing Jeremy Lin in public now, sadly with all the anti-Asian hate that's happening, seeing him as an outspoken community leader and just being out there to be a face for the community, for people to connect with people who may not be following this along. It was really inspiring. So internally, we were like, oh, it'd be a really great time just to remind people of LINSANITY, like the impact he continues to have, but what that was like, who is he as a person? You mentioned church and just his family. So that was already in our brain. And then when we had the opportunity to play Snakehead, we're like, oh, this is all coming together. And we're so appreciative that you want to join us for this conversation and the spotlight on you. But what are your thoughts on Jeremy Lin? I mean, the film was 7 years ago. He's such an outspoken community leader now, like seeing his evolution. What are your thoughts on him?
I mean, that's actually what I was going to talk about. I'm so proud of what he's grown into, right? I mean, he is the role model that we've always needed. It was like I don't say superhero we needed, but he's that role model we've always needed. And I think a lot of my work has been built around creating role models, not creating role models, but portraying them in my work so that people get inspired by what they say, but what they do. A lot of times, you have to, you try to take the good and put it on screen and you hide the bad. But with Jeremy, there was never any bad. So it was always so good. But, and he was a kid. When I met him, he was, 190 pounds, right? He was a lot skinny. He was just a young kid out of college. And so to see what he's doing now, to use his platform and his voice, and I'm so proud of him. I'm so happy that he is speaking and he is the one to hear these things, because the way he does it, the way he's embracing his role is what we need. We don't need people that want to be famous. I mean, it's almost a responsibility that he sees that he's like, I need to do this because this is who I am. This is why I'm here. And I think that's to me, I'm just so proud of him, because he's really grown up. I mean, what it is now. And, I think even talking to him and seeing him now, right? It's just that level of trust that we built. I think that goes with all my work and all the projects I've ever worked on, or it's all based off of building a relationship. And I think that's something that these days we don't always do in documentary work, with building that relationship. But for me, any project I take on, it's like, I'm going to go all out. And this is not just this. We're going to continue this forever, because we'll be forever tied with this piece of work that we do together. And
that's great. Yeah, and for people who may not know, Jeremy Lin also has a foundation. We have worked on different events in the past, and we have worked with his people to help support Asian American musicians, people kind of in entertainment, a lot of different things. So yeah, it's really wonderful to see. You want that convergence of someone who has the platform, a big international platform, who is also, wants to be a voice for the community and do good, which is really wonderful. To a certain extent, it might be a full circle situation with Better Luck Tomorrow at Sundance, filming the behind the scenes, working with the team there. LINSANITY world premiered at Sundance, if my memory is correct, or premiered there, yeah. So I'm curious for you, like that point where you now have made a feature film playing at Sundance. And I do want to say, I believe after Sundance, we were one of the next festivals you screened, and you had a lot of opportunities. And the fact that you allowed CAAMFest to screen your film for opening night film, it was really special, and we appreciated that. But can you talk about LINSANITY, maybe looking back at what that film was to you and all of what was happening then with the film?
Yeah. When I look back at it, I've been talking about it a lot, just because I'm the sports doc guy now, so I go out for a lot of sports documentaries. It's such an amazing, phenomenal story. So all I had to do was not fuck it up. All I had to do was not mess it up, basically, right? Because it's such a good story. And, as a filmmaker, you always want to put your own sort of presence, and you will, obviously. But I also knew that this film was like, okay, this is something that I'm going to watch in 50 years from now. So let's do the right job for it, right? What it needs to do. And, looking back, yeah, I remember even coming to that CAAMFest that camp. I mean, Sundance was nervous just because it was my first time, but CAAMFest was way more nervous. I mean, 1,400 people, like all of my family, like 200 people. Shout out to all my family that's watching too for this right now. But my whole family, and I just it felt really, really fun. You know, it felt fun that, you know, as a filmmaker, as an artist, you know, and, you know, also as a human being, like, you leave home, you want to be able to come back and be like, I did something, you know, that sojourner sort of experience of like, I left home and I'm going to bring this back. I am doing things that sort of, you know, break the mold of what I was meant to be doing, you know, or what was traditionally meant to be doing. And I mean, LINSANITY for me at that time in San Francisco was real special.
Yeah, I remember. It's almost like going to like a basketball game. I remember the Castro Theater having that energy, and then Asian Art Museum afterwards for the party. I remember you can feel the electricity in the air and the excitement for people to see this film about someone that I think a lot of people were so excited to see happening in the news, and then also you as the filmmaker telling it. I think it really was a perfect night. I think we're gonna move forward. I want to make sure we have enough time. You know, after LINSANITY, when were you starting to think about making a feature narrative film? And can you talk about the origins of Snakehead?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to make a feature narrative film in 2004 after Better Luck Tomorrow came out. I'm like, I'm gonna make it. This is the year I'm gonna make it. So I've always wanted to make feature narrative films. It's just, you know, they're hard. It's a hard genre and format to work in. It's very different than documentaries. And, you know, I always wanted to. And so, you know, I think for the first 5 years, working under Justin, all those, you know, being in my 20s in LA, I wrote some scripts. I couldn't find one that I loved and I couldn't stop thinking about. But when I heard the story of Sister Ping in New York, I was like, that's the story I have to tell. If there's one, you know, they always say that cliche, like, you know, there's one, every movie should be the last movie. And that was it for me, you know, and you know, it sat with me. You know, I always kind of test it. You know, you always get excited about a new idea or a new project. But, you know, through several years, this is the movie I want to make. I remember even and we'll go back to Justin. I remember sharing a script with him, an early version of the movie, and he was like, "Ev, you know, this is a big movie. This is like Godfather." He's like, and this is, you know, after he made Fast and Furious, he's like, I still haven't made my Godfather. So what you're trying to do on your first one is a lot. It's very ambitious. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. You may never get it done, you know. And but he did say one thing though, and I think I always stick with this. He's like, but you know, it doesn't matter what I say in the end, you know. If you're gonna do it, you're gonna do it. And you know, I think that's sort of, you know, it was like one of those little. I took it as his lesson of just like, you shouldn't do this, but I can't stop you. And you know, and that movie took a long time. You know, I moved to New York. I mean, we were working on the Jeremy Lin doc. I mean, against like many projects, little ones you just do. I moved to New York to make the movie, and I wanted to go there and research and start building my own sort of base and community there. And you know, while I was out there, you know, we were still doing the Jeremy Lin project, and that's when, you know, LINSANITY actually happened. So that put a little pause in the project of Snakehead. But coming out of, you know, Snakehead, I mean, LINSANITY and Sundance, all of a sudden I got a manager, I got, you know, all this opportunity, and I'm like, I want to make this movie. And my manager there, everyone's like, yeah, let's make it. You know, who do you want? And everything changed at that moment. And you know, as another lesson in narrative filmmaking, right? Even after you get the green light from and the partnership of someone like Lucy Liu, you still have to raise the money. You still have to go out and look for, you know, it's not easy. No one's gonna just give you, you know, $4 million to make a movie. It just doesn't work like that. And so, you know, through many years of trying to raise the money, we decided that it's I don't know if this is gonna happen, and I'm just getting older, you know. So we decided, like, you know what? Let's just do this the old school way, the Better Luck Tomorrow way. You know, I don't need that. I don't need that budget. I'm happy to carry the camera gear. I'm happy to do that. So, you know, we did a little Kickstarter and we got a lot of support from the community, and, you know, the years of building that sort of presence in Chinatown, and the community there, which I could not have done this without that kind of community support. And, you know, raising the money from all our Kickstarters and all our supporters, that really set the tone, like, okay, we can do this. This is going to be a crazy journey of indie filmmaking, but we're going to try. And, you know, I love working crazy hard and pushing ourselves into situations that seem impossible. But I had a partner in crime with Brian that was just down to enable me to do everything. And, you know, I think that's how we kind of decided to go with it.
Yes, definitely shout out to Brian Yang, who's a wonderful producer, kind of friend of Cam for many, many years, and makes so much happen behind the scenes and in front of the screen as well. You know, you mentioned Better Luck Tomorrow and kind of going at it with that kind of grassroots, let's just make this film. You know, the story for both films, I think, is there, so it's just making it happen. I do think one of the key things for the success for both of these films, because I think they're both big successes, is your cast. And working with them and having an ensemble team. You know, there's a lot of characters. There's a lot happening in the film. There's the kind of the arc of the characters go through in the film is quite wonderful. Can you talk about finding your cast and working with them for this film?
Absolutely. I mean, my cast was incredible. The cast was just for Snakehead is incredible. There is no way this movie is even watchable without them, because I didn't know what I was doing. Because, you know, as a first-time filmmaker, as a director, you know, you tell everyone you can do it because, you know, you're the leader. But if you've never done it before, who says you can do it? And, you know, for me, that process was very different than documentary filmmaking. And I didn't fully anticipate that. You know, I underestimated the form of narrative storytelling. And so, you know, I found out in the edit that how difficult it was. But fortunately, I was lucky to have, you know, Shuya and Sung and Jade, even Yassine and Devon and Richie. They were just incredible, you know, because what they did, you know, the film, when we were on set, the energy of this, like, we're making Godfather, we're making Scarface, we're making something no one's ever going to let us make, so we have to make it ourselves. And the actors embrace that, right? I mean, you got Sung Kang, who's on his days off, is, you know, coming to our standing in the cold and 30-degree weather, you know, trying to do a scene outside in the snow, right? You know, he didn't need to do it, but, you know, because, you know, I think for me, it's all about these relationships and building that sort of reputation. You know, I mean, I've known Sung since Better Luck Tomorrow. We've been making films this whole time. So when we get into this mode, it's definitely different because we never worked together in a director-actor situation. But, I mean, having him there on set and having that sort of validation, just having him there, for like everyone else, like, whoa, Sung Kang's here. It's like, we better show up. And, you know, it just his presence of being the professional there helped so much, you know. And, you know, people like Jade, who's been in the game for forever. She just came at me, challenged me, but also supported me to help me grow. Knew I was a young first-time filmmaker. And, you know, she gave me the sort of just opportunity to direct her in a way that, you know, I felt like, it just felt like, you know, whatever's I could learn a lot. And you know, that was it. I mean, Shuya, she's an incredible actress. And I feel when I see her on screen, it's just power. You know, when we talk about screen presence, like, she just has it. And it made my job really easy because, you know, I didn't really fully understand what I was doing, but she knew what the character needed. She knew what the character needed to be, where the character, the decisions that the character would make. And, you know, she's embraced it. And, you know, the thing is, you know, she's in every scene. So as difficult as every situation was, she was right there. you know. She's on the ground, wires being pulled on her face. I mean, that's her. There's no extras, there's no stunts. You know, they're just, she's there and she's living every aspect of this film, and she's doing it. I mean, she's just doing it with grace and execution, and I think that was just unbelievable to work with.
Yeah, and Snakehead, this is just the beginning of the road for the film. Right after this program, people are going to be able to watch it. But yeah, to your point, with all of these characters, they're so iconic. They're already etched in my brain. The performances are so good. And speaking of which, I have one last video to share with you.
Hi everyone at the screening. Greetings from New York. Thank you to CAAM Festival for having us and giving us our Northern California Bay Area premiere, which happens to be Evan's hometown. So thank you. Evan, congratulations. It's been a long road and we've been through a few things, but it was all fun and I loved working with you. Thank you for bringing us together, to trust us, and just to lead us through. You're a true leader. Thank you for your passion, your vision, your determination, and your hard work. It all worked out. You killed it. Enjoy it. Mwah.
Wow, this is amazing. Can we do this every? This is great. This is amazing.
Wow. Definitely. And once again, you mentioned Brian earlier. Brian is such a wonderful producer, and he wanted this to be as special for you as possible. So I want to thank, and I want to thank everyone who called in, have busy lives. So we appreciate it. But we're all here for you. We want to show our appreciation, Evan, for all the amazing things that you're doing. You know, for this film, don't want to spoil anything, right? People are going to watch it shortly. But what is your takeaway? What do you want people, after watching this film, to take away from this story?
What do I want people to take away? I mean, you know, always this film was always about, at the heart of it is this, it's a badass Asian woman, right? And I never got to really see that on screen. It's usually a stereotypical one-dimensional thing. So for me, that was what was important to me because of the Asian women in my life. You know, my mother, my grandmother, my mentors, my wife. You know, all of these women to me are not really being portrayed the way I think they should be. And, you know, in hindsight now, I look at it, I'm a man trying to tell a story about a woman. But, you know, the reality was, for me, was like, you know, I think this is a story for men to watch and see, you know, that perspective about women, that these characters can play like that. And, you know, it always comes back down to, you know, this representation and this idea of like, look, we're telling stories, and when it comes to the masses, if this changes the way, the view of someone in Iowa and someone in Texas or even in Guatemala about Asians and Asian Americans, then we win. You know, if we just move it slightly. And I think the power of media there's so much power in what we do. And sometimes we forget how to wield it and how to execute it the right way.
Thank you. Yeah. And I think of the films that you have worked on, and there's so many iconic role models or people that we can look at. And, you know, some of the stories are complicated, their backgrounds, but I think these are bold, strong characters that Asian Americans, you know, diversity of Asian Americans can look at and have pride or be inspired by. We are very close to the end of time. How can people follow along with this film? How can people learn more about Snakehead?
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, we have our Instagram, obviously, Snakehead Movie, and Facebook and all that. And, you know, I think we'll have some pretty interesting news coming up where the journey of this film is going to be. So I'm excited to get this out in the world. And that's really all I really want, is just people to see it, you know, and give me a chance to make another one. That's all I really want.
All right. Well, and I do hope that, and we said this at the beginning, we do hope once the world is safe again and we can get back into the theaters, once we can get our audiences to meet our filmmakers, all the amazing talent, Snakehead is one of those films. Whether it's us or other people bringing it to the Bay Area, we will be a champion. We want people to see this film. We want to bring you back to the Bay Area for another screening in the future. So stay tuned. Evan, thank you so much again for participating. I'm excited for audiences to see Snakehead coming up. Any last words on your end?
I just want to thank you, Masashi, and the CAAMFest staff and volunteers and everyone there. I mean, this has been an amazing sort of conversation to go through my past, and I feel very very grateful, for the support of and the journey that we've come to. So I'm excited.
Good, thank you. Yes, I hope you all in the audience, you enjoy Snakehead, and I look forward to seeing you at a future event. So thank you all again. Have a great night.